Good morning to the Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, online viewers, radio listeners via State Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM and respective radio stations island-wide. I'm Rolika Roach and welcome to the virtual live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, August 12th, 2020. At this time, I would like to invite the Minister of Finance, the Honorable August12th, to address you. Minister Edion, you have the floor.
Good morning, Rolika. Good morning to my fellow ministers, the media, and all of you tuning into the press briefing today. The Parliament meeting last week, Friday, August 7th, concerning SRP was cancelled due to a lack of chairmanship. I'm hoping that we can reschedule it as soon as possible as it is important. Yesterday was the virtual launch of the Enterprise Support Project. It is said small to medium enterprises are the lifeblood of modern economies. This is a sector that is considered one of the main engines of the economy and a sector which has been hit hard during this pandemic. In the past, I've heard many complaints. Things have been complicated for MSMEs who were finding it increasingly difficult to retain business orders and obtain credit. We have been hit hard, as I mentioned, by this pandemic, and we haven't gotten the necessary funding we initially wanted for the SRP to offer businesses loans. So this project has become even more necessary. The program allows businesses not to just survive this pandemic, but gives opportunity to grow and even invest. I'm excited for the opportunity for the startups because there's also, in the past, have been rarely opportunities for startups in the past. I want to really encourage the MSMEs that are in need of financing to sign up. I believe the first two partners are the River Island Bank and the credits. In reference to the SRP, the list of recipients for the business payroll support was released last week. When the payroll is closed, the list of recipients for June will be released. So far, there are 225 applicants for the business payroll support. To avoid missing the deadline, please, on Friday, August 14th, sign up today. Again, I'd like to make it known the deadline for business payroll support will be Friday, August 14th. When applying for income support or unemployment support, please be sure you're applying for the correct one, and also be sure you aren't applying for the social services under the Ministry of VSA, as this is a different program. There are criteria for both, so be sure you're applying for the correct one. You would have to reapply for the correct one if you don't. For income support, you need your 2019 tax declaration forms, so keep that in mind with the time you have to apply. Expired documents would only be accepted up to 6 months into the expiration date. I would like to once again ask the employers to please provide your dismissed employees with a letter stating that you let them go due to COVID-19. The verbiage is important for them to be able to receive stimulus support. The letter also has to be signed and on the company's letterhead, so it is clear which company it is coming from. The longer you delay the letter, the longer it takes for them to receive the funds. Once again, the deadline for business payroll support is this Friday, the 14th, and the deadline for income and unemployment support will be August 22nd. Please be on time with your application. In addition to that, we will be doing a couple of interviews this week and continue the campaign for SRP in the coming weeks. That'll be all for today, Rolika.
Thank you, Minister Edion, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Minister of Justice, the Honorable Anna Richardson, to address you. Minister Richardson, you have the floor.
Good morning, Deputy Prime Minister, colleague ministers, members of the press, Ms. Roach, and the listening and viewing public. This morning, I hereby update activities within the Ministry of Justice that occurred over the last week. With regards to our Immigration Department closure explanation, last Friday, August 7th, I was notified by management of the Immigration and Border Protection Services that an immigration officer tested positive with the coronavirus. The officer was already home on sick leave, but due to symptoms, the officer had themselves tested and with a positive result, immediately notified their direct supervisor at IBPS. The management consulted the Collective Prevention Services, known as CPS, of the situation and presented them with a list of personnel who may have been in close contact with the officer. All immigration office buildings and other justice sections at the 80 Illich Road were thoroughly fumigated last weekend. Also during the weekend, CPS findings, it was decided to close the immigration, or awaiting CPS findings, it was decided to close the immigration office for the coming week until further notice. Via the different media outlets, the public was informed of this. This is a precautionary measure that is in the interest of safeguarding both the staff and public health, and we do apologize for any inconvenience. Meanwhile, during the weekend, the CPS did their assessment and interviewed the members of the personnel in order to advise IBPS management and staff. On Monday, August 10th, the CPS presented their findings, whereby 4 members of the staff are currently in isolation. From here, I would like to thank CPS for their prompt response, executing the health protocol to the IBPS department. In light of the strict COVID measures and in an effort to protect the health and safety of its customers and staff, the Immigration, Border and Protection Services operates the following on an appointment basis only. Therefore, IBPS have already started to reschedule appointments, and I hereby ask the public for your understanding as we work through the backlog of canceled appointments. I would like to advise clients that there will be no consequences for their applications. Please stay tuned for further updates to come with this regard. In the weekend, I was also informed of a similar COVID situation or case within our customs department, and the same protocol is being executed by CPS and management. With regards to a message from KPSM, we have come to the realization that there is illegal parking both on the boardwalk and in our front street and back street areas. The police department is issuing an urgent and one-time warning to the public that absolutely no motor vehicles are allowed on the boardwalk, and anyone caught driving or riding a motorbike on the boardwalk will be penalized. It has also come to the attention that over the weekend, several vehicles were being driven and parked on the boardwalk, and we want to make it clear that the boardwalk is restricted from motor vehicles, with the exception of emergency services. The police will be stepping up controls in that area, and we'll be towing any vehicles parked on the boardwalk and issuing fines for driving on the promenade. There will be zero tolerance approach to this practice, and it can pose danger for the pedestrians using the boardwalk. I'd like to also take this opportunity to thank the general public and those who brought it to the attention of the authorities of persons misusing the boardwalk, as well as the illegal parking on the streets. As it relates to public order, the community is encouraged to stay informed, practice good hygiene, be aware, and be prepared. As a community, we are in this together, and in order to slow down the spread of COVID-19 virus, we must execute as advised. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for your attention, and I remain available for any questions.
Thank you, Minister Richardson, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, the Honorable Dr. Anders Rudolph Samuel, to address you. Minister Samuel, you have the floor.
Good morning, and thank you, Ms. Roach. Good morning to PM replacement, Minister Durang. Good morning to the media. Good morning to my colleagues. Good morning to St. Martin. Today, I would like to say that, yes, indeed, we began on Monday with school, and the schools have all began with online learning. Because online learning is new for St. Martin, we know that we would have started at certain places with some challenges. As the week progresses, I will retain the assessments that are being done. So in order to check how the connections were going and how the first week go, and then we would be making adjustments to make sure that the distance learning can be done more easy and for everyone else. The department, the ministry, is busy with a policy on distance learning. This policy, when it is finished or when it is further developed, will definitely be discussed with the stakeholders before we go public with it. It's not that we do not have any guidelines, but it is to make sure that everyone is on the same page. Indeed, the reason for this is that distance learning can be done in various ways. The public must understand, I think, when we look at the numbers of what's happening in the community, that the spread of the virus is not going in the direction that we would want it to go. So it is very important for us to realize that health comes first. And in the reports that I have brought out before, I have always said health comes first. So when the assessments are done by the Ministry of VSR, and we at the Ministry of Education will be able to make adjustments to the instructions that I have sent out. I know there are schools, institutions out there that are still not adhering as yet to the instructions, and I would like to explain the public the following. There are three groups of institutions that are giving education. We have the private institutions, and under the private institutions, we have daycares, afternoon schools, institutions like LU, CIA, Montessori. We have the subsidized, by government subsidized institutions, which are school boards that are subsidized, like the Catholic School Board, the Protestant School Board. And we also have the public schools, which are directly funded by the government. All three different types of institutions are governed differently under the Ministry of Education. When it comes to a public health situation, like the one that we have now, there are two ordinances that gives the Minister of Health the rights to inspect whether or not the areas where education is being carried out is safe enough. As the week progresses, we will come back to the public with an update on how the opening and how the online schooling is going. I will wait to see, Ms. Roach, if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Samuel, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment and Infrastructure, the Honorable Egbert Duran, to address you. Minister Duran, you have the floor.
Good morning to you, Ms. Roach, my colleague ministers, members of the media, and a special good morning to the people of St. Martin. Today, I wish to update you on the following points in regards to the Ministry of Romi. In connection with the first 4 priority shelters, they are currently quite advanced in repairs and will be finalized by the end of next week. Based on information received from the NRPB, the bid for the remaining 9 shelters is currently being evaluated. The NRPB is aiming to award the contract by the beginning of next week to ensure the seamless continuation of these repairs. The expected completion date for the remaining 9 shelters is at the end of January 2021. However, during the course of the coming 5 months, individual shelters will be completed and delivered. Upon completion of the evaluation, a tentative timeline of delivery of the remaining 9 shelters will also be shared with the general public. I would like to start with the first shelter that is now being renovated, the Rupert Maynard shelter, just to give a brief elucidation of the works that have been done and still needs to be done. The water tank and generator house are plastered and painted. The waterproofing has to be done on the inside of the tank and the roof of the generator house. The interior doors, the water tanks, and ventilated doors, D3, are installed. The electrical and plumbing works on the inside of the building are done. The electrical works on the generator house and the water tank are currently in the finalization stage. The downspouts are installed, and they're still awaiting the installation of the generator. In regards to the Dutch Water Community Center, the roof sheet is replaced with the caps. The water tank is being plastered. The water tank doors are already installed. All the ACs are installed. The opening of the generator house is also done and plastered in the section that still needs to be painted. The retaining wall is completed. The existing cistern and water is being pumped out, again, in order to have it waterproof. The extension of the overflow drain is in place. And also the shutters are 75% completed and should be done, as I mentioned, by next week. They're also waiting the installation of the generators. In regards to the NEPA, they're busy with the plastering of the generator house. The installation of the shutters are almost completed. The electrical points needs to be added as well, and a window needs to be replaced. The electrical and plumbing works are in the final stages. And the last one, the Milton Peters College, the new gym hall, the generator house, and the water tank is also being prepped to be painted. The interior doors are completed. The water tank doors are installed. And also the electrical works for the generator house is in the final stages. They are also awaiting the generator to be installed. The plumbing and electrical works are completed based on the request. I now move on to updates from the Prime Minister's office. Firstly, in regards to the stakeholder session on the National Development Vision, NDV, the second stakeholders session took place yesterday, August 11th. These sessions serve not only to provide elucidation on the respective pillars, but moreover to receive feedback from our partners. Feedback that will further shape and broaden our goals for St. Martin. On Tuesday, the discussion was being held with the Pillar 2 with the theme, A Strong and Resilient Economy. The vision is to transform St. Martin into a compassionate, strong, and decisive country that will economically be resilient and capable of sustaining its own development and providing an enhanced quality of life and well-being for the generations to come. Presently, the stakeholders are the Chambers of Commerce, the Central Bank of Curacao and St. Martin, SZV, APS, St. Martin Development Funds, and credits. All these respective institutions have their representatives representing them in these meetings. The session was focused on having an active discussion and feedback from these stakeholders in regards to the NDV. This and all other sessions are also focused on enhancing everyone's understanding on a national development vision process. Seeing the process can only be successful if we all understand the draft vision. We can come to a consensus on the broader goals. Once we are successful in establishing the final version of our development for the next 10 years, we can actively start the next phase, namely the strategic planning phase, which is part of the National Development Plan, the NDP. The next session is planned for next week, Tuesday, August 18th, with the relevant stakeholders. Regarding information to the proposed consensus kingdom law, I would like to invite the general public to tune in to SXM Gov Radio 107.9 FM to learn more about the consensus kingdom law as it's being proposed by the Netherlands. The information session will be held by the Secretary General of the Ministry of General Affairs, Mr. Plantain, who will be further explaining the proposal of the draft law. This is part of the assignment of the legal work group to provide the general public with information on this complex issue. The program will be hosted every Wednesday, 8 p.m., and his guest for this evening is Mr. Dennis Richardson. In regards to the ESP launch, as was mentioned earlier by the Honorable Minister of Finance, yesterday, August 11th, the National Recovery Program Bureau launched its 5th trust fund project, namely the Enterprise Support Project, a collaborative venture between the government of St. Martin and the NRPB and the Windward Island Bank, also Q Credits, the Chamber of Commerce, the SER, financially to support micro, small, and medium enterprises. The government is committed to execute these projects that are already in the preparation phase when we took office on March 28, 2020. We believe that the enterprise support project can improve the MSMEs' financial inclusion to help increase the economic growth, job creation, and the effectiveness of the fiscal and monetary policy, and could also contribute to financial stability for the people of St. Martin. This project has an envelope of $35 million US, which has been made available for the next 4 years. I would like to motivate all existing and new entrepreneurs to request financing through this facility. And for more information, you can always visit the website of the NRPB. I believe, given the fact that we've gone through so much with the hurricanes and now with this pandemic, it is a perfect opportunity for the small businesses to grow, as was emphasized by the Minister of Finance. In reference to the proposed entity, the Council of Ministers finalized their strategic approach to the discussion that will be held in the upcoming Kingdom Council of Ministers meeting, Friday, August 14th, 2020. This approach is one whereby St. Martin Council of Ministers would like to present the Kingdom Council of Ministers with a counter proposal based on the proposal that is currently on the table. Yesterday, a letter elucidating the sentiments and views of the Council of Ministers was sent to the Prime Minister Rutte, which is the chair of the Kingdom Council of Ministers, and the State Secretary, Mr. Knops, after this was approved by the Council of Ministers of St. Martin. In the letter, St. Martin outlined their views on how the countries can come to a consensus together and explain how the approach that would be presented by St. Martin is more in line with the Kingdom Statute and also with St. Martin's Constitution. The proposal includes a 3-layer approach regulating financial supervision of these finances and the executions of the reform measures. In further elucidations, why the liquidity support and the financial support for the reforms should be separated. Today, August 12th, we received official notice that our request was added to the agenda and has been approved. Our Minister Plenipotentiary will present St. Martin's counter proposal in the Rijksministerraad, as I mentioned, on August 14th, upcoming, which is this Friday. This will serve as a starting point for further discussions with the Netherlands. In last closing, I would like to say, in efforts for us to have be COVID-19 free, a COVID-19 free St. Martin, I ask the community of St. Martin to keep yourself and your loved ones safe and as we continue to build our economy. Proper face mask usage, social distancing, proper hand washing, and respiratory etiquette. Limit physical contact, handshaking, hugging, and kissing. We must do all that we have to do in our part to fight this pandemic, and ensure to also have a disaster kit and also be prepared for the current hurricane season that we are in and any potential calamities that might happen. In regards to the vision, I would like to remind the community of the vision we have for St. Martin, that we the people move from where we are here to being a multi-pillar economy, allowing each other and every one of us to afford the maximum growth, where opportunities exist that empower each and every citizen of St. Martin. With your determination and strength of mind, your actions will allow you to progress to the next level. There's no limit to the progress that we can realize only if we work together. St. Martin is a place where dreams can be achieved. With that being said, I would like to say God bless the people of St. Martin and thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to any questions that the media might have. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister Duran. If you've just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, August 12th, 2020. Before we move on to the question and answer session, I would like to inform that the Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport, and Telecommunication, the Honorable Ludmila De Wever, is present, however, will not be making any opening statements, but available for any questions the media may have. Also, members of the media, please note, Minister Irion is no longer in the meeting. However, Deputy Prime Minister Duran may be able to answer any questions on his behalf. We now move on to the question and answer session. I would first like to invite Bibi Shaw of SMN News. You have the floor.
Good morning. Good morning, Minister Samuel. Good morning, Deputy Prime Minister. This question goes for the Minister of Education, but I would like a take from the Deputy Prime Minister. Currently, there's a situation going on at LU, Learning Unlimited, Minister Samuel, yesterday a letter was sent to the school telling them that if they do not abide by the instructions or the advice given by government, that schools should proceed with distance learning. But the information I'm getting, and the LU is defying this. Currently, there is police on the location, and I believe the Minister of VSR. At which point in time, government will decide to say, issue the instruction as stated in the letter. Besides that, Minister Samuel or Prime Minister, do we have a student critically ill in the St. Martin Medical Center suffering from COVID effects?
Thank you, Bibi. Good morning to you again.
Thank you.
Let me start with the second question first. There are talks for me, and I can say talks because I have asked for verification, and when I get the verification on that question, I will be able to answer more firmly. For me, it doesn't make any sense to discuss a matter like this that is so sensitive without having all the necessary facts in hand. The second one is the situation in regards to LU. We all will understand that there are institutions on the island that all fall under some sort of regulation or the other. I have indicated that there are three types of institutions giving education, and you can separate them in private institutions, subsidized institutions, and government institutions. When the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health have issued a directive, most naturally, we will have to see if the directives are followed and the assessment would be made, and then the appropriate measures will then be taken. So I cannot tell you when, but I will tell you the process will be followed.
Thank you, Minister Samuel. Thank you, Bibi, for that question. Minister Duran?
To add on the last point you mentioned in regards to a student being critically ill, I don't have any facts to confirm or deny this, and I also don't believe that this is the appropriate platform to discuss such a private matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister Duran. I would now like to invite Stephen Cerulean of PJ82 Radio. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Ms. Roach. Ministers, good morning. My question is for the Minister of TIAT. Based on the situation at LU at this time, seeing the fact that this is a private entity, what role is the Ministry of Economic Affairs playing in the current development at LU?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the question, Mrs. Cerulean. Right now, since Friday when we signed the MR off between the Minister of VSA and myself, it was to control and restrict certain businesses. The further along we go with restriction of businesses, then that means that Learning Unlimited falls under that as well. The decisions that are taken between the Minister of Education, Minister Samuel, Minister Panaflek of VSA, and myself are all done keeping the safety of St. Martiners and their kids in mind. I have spoken with the school already this morning. I will go back and speak to them later on, and we will see how we can have this amicably ended with everyone understanding that our priority right now as a government is keeping people safe with our rising number of cases. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Minister DeWeaver. At this point, I would like to invite Jeffrey Dr. Sockran of Island 92 Radio. You have the floor.
Good morning, and good morning, everyone. Good morning, ministers. Thank you. I have received a number of questions from our audience, and they center around the police. So this goes to Minister Richardson. Is it true that for a number of reasons, including sick leave and members of the Dutch police leaving the island, that our police force is having difficulty maintaining a sufficient number of officers to complete their duties and patrols?
Good morning, Dr. Sock. Thank you for your question. I don't necessarily believe that that is fair to say. I think that that is more of an assumption than an actuality. But I'd like to reassure the public that the police force, as well as with the support of the various aspects of the Ministry of Justice, it is the largest ministry within the government of St. Martin, the support is there. So please do not allow any false information to give you any sort of unrest in terms of the security ability of our police force and other within the law enforcement of St. Martin.
Thank you, Minister Richardson. Thank you, Dr. Sock, for that question. I would now like to invite Lyndon Brown of BCN TV. You have the floor.
Good morning to the people of St. Martin and the honorable ministers. This question can go to the Deputy Prime Minister. It's about the stimulus package for the bus drivers. The bus driver are in some crisis. What they are saying, that the funds is not consistent. It started very good, and up to now, some bus driver are still waiting. So, Deputy Prime Minister, can you make it clear and make some explanation on this matter, if you have the facts?
Good morning, Mr. Brown. Thank you very much for your questions. I just would like for you to clarify. You mentioned that it started off good and now it's not going good. Are you saying that they haven't received any funds, or are you saying that the funds decreased? Can you clarify your question, please?
The bus driver is saying that the funds is not consistent. Am I clear?
So the amount is not consistent, of receiving it is not being consistent. That's what I'm trying to establish. The amount?
Receiving it.
Okay. All the funds have been paid out to the SMDF and they should be receiving it shortly. Based on the fact that the conditions changed in the last month, that's the reason for the slight delay.
Thank you, Minister Duran. Thank you, Lyndon, for that question. I would now like to invite Dimitri Whitfield of the Daily Herald. You have the floor.
Hi, good morning to the Honorable Council of Ministers, Honorable Deputy Prime Minister Duran, to the people of St. Martin, to my colleagues in the media, good morning. My first question is to VSA Minister Richard Panafleck. The continually rising numbers of active coronavirus.
Dimitri,
yes,
Dimitri,
please?
unfortunately, Minister Panafleck is not in the meeting. He's actually not present in the meeting this morning.
Okay. So then I would like to ask my first question to the Minister of TIAT, Ludmila Duiva. Minister Duiva, I don't think I'm out of place to say that the economy has taken a massive hit because of the coronavirus crisis. And while there are some support measures for businesses, such as the SSRP and the newly launched Enterprise Support Project, several businesses have closed their doors since the beginning of the crisis in March. Can you indicate how many businesses have failed during this time? And what is St. Martin's current unemployment rate?
Thanks for the question, Dimitri. We're still busy doing an assessment of how many businesses have closed. Yesterday, during the interview I had with Lady Grace and Minister Panafleck, I mentioned that there was over 68 shops that were closed in Front Street. So what we're doing now is an assessment of how many businesses have been affected by COVID-19. We already had a struggle with the economy since Hurricane Irma, because as we were getting back to almost the levels in terms of visitors, just about hitting it right before COVID-19 hit, in the way that the island started off the year in January and February, that everything was cut off. What happened is this COVID-19 pandemic has now eliminated or made it almost impossible for the small chances that were remaining for those businesses that were just passing by, just surviving. And that is the reality, and that is the unfortunate situation that we're in now. But I am hoping that I will have that information as soon as we're done with our assessment of how many businesses have been affected and have permanently closed their doors. And in terms of the unemployment rate, I'm sorry, I don't have that information available with me now, but I will get that and report that to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister De Weaver. Thank you, Dimitri. We now move on to the second round of questions. Bibi Shah, you have the floor.
I just make a clarity before I move to my second question. Ministers Samuel and Doran, at no point did I ask any of you to identify the student or the school where the child is going. The purpose of the question is to say that we have a minor that is probably ill and probably hospitalized, yet we have a school that is defying government, that is looking very weak today because a private entity is refusing to follow government's guidelines when it comes to COVID-19. My question now is for the Minister of TIAT, Ms. Ludmila De Weaver. Minister De Weaver, we are at 100 last night. Can you tell me, other than 12 to 6 restrictions of businesses or clubs, some businesses closing, what other restrictions government plan to take so that we can nip COVID-19? You know, there's a lot of people out there, families are hurting, and government have said it a number of times that the spread is among the local community and not incoming passengers. And while I tend to agree, I'd like to know what government is planning to do, what other restrictions, so that we can keep our locals at home for the moment until we can flatten the curve on COVID-19.
Minister De Weaver, can you kindly unmute your mic, please?
My apologies, Bibi. I am so sorry. Ms. Hodge, I'm so sorry. I stepped away when I was trying to pick up the statistics for Dimitri, because the last one that I had for unemployment was 16%, but it is a significantly higher than 16% after the adjustments for COVID-19, and that's the information I was trying to get for him. So my apologies for being late to answer your question. Your question to me was what other measures are going to be taken in order to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Is that correct? Well, just to give an inclination, an idea to the public, to the listening public, viewing public, the measures that are currently being worked on in terms of the changes for the ministerial regulation between Minister Panafleck and myself includes the closure of businesses during the night. So right now we are looking at casinos, adult entertainment, bars, lounges. I think that about sums it up. Restaurants, we are still in the process of negotiating whether or not restaurants remain open only for outdoor dining, whether we restrict indoor dining. We agreed yesterday that we would look into it further based on the recommendation that we are getting from the medical professionals in this. But what I can say with certainty is that casinos, bars, nightclubs, lounges will be closed the minute our ministerial regulation is finalized. And as you said yourself, Ms. Shaw, that the prevalence of the cases is amongst the younger population between the ages of 20 to 40 years old. And as you know, it is that the clusters are surrounding them in these venues that we are looking to control. I forgot to mention one other item that was on our ministerial regulation was for gathering venues, meeting venues, conferences. And this is also something that's being controlled because it's a mix of people in a confined space. Even though there's you can do social distancing, the risk right now is too high amongst our population. And the medical professionals are urging us to be as conservative as possible, as strict as possible when it comes to our measures. And I am hoping that the public will understand that we have had to take these measures because of the fact that we let our guard down. And we have been reminding everyone for months to not let their guard down. And now we are the ones that are responsible for having stricter measures done in terms of closures of businesses that, as you heard Dimitri talk about, that are already struggling. And this is unfortunate. And we hope that we can turn this around as long as we learn to be responsible. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you, Minister DeWeaver. Thank you, Bibi, for that question. Stephen Cerulean, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. My question is for the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Rummy. Earlier on, you spoke of the fact that 4 shelters are presently being worked on. Can you give us an indication, if you may, Minister, as to the price tag associated with those shelters and how soon will they be made available to the general public of St. Martin?
Good morning again. Thank you very much, Stephen, for your question. Just for clarity's sake, you're speaking in regards to the 4 shelters or the completion of all the shelters?
The 4 shelters.
To get the exact price tag, I would have to get back to you, and I have my cabinet send it to you. I believe it's in the range of, I rather send it and then send the factual number so there's no misinterpretation. And as I mentioned in the presentation, it's expected to be completed by the end of next week, which was in line with the original deadline, which I received from the NRPB a couple of weeks ago by the initiation of this project. So I'll have the correct information sent in regards to the exact price tag for the 4 shelters.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister Duran. Thank you, Stephen, for that question. I would now like to invite Jeffrey, Dr. Soksakran, you have the floor.
Thank you, Roleka. This question is for Minister DeWeaver. I was hoping, Minister, that you could elaborate a little bit more on some of the changes that you're contemplating for business closures in the future, a little more than you just did. And then as a follow-up to that, if you could give us some insight, the numbers that came out from VSA dated the 11th of August indicate that we tested 482 people at Princess Juliana International Airport. Of those 482, can you tell me if any positive tests have been picked up at the airport? And if so, how many positive tests do we have, and where are those positive tests originating from? What destinations? Thank you.
Morning, Dr. Sok. Thanks for the question. The last part, I do not have the details, the data that you're referring to, the 482. So I will get that information and give it to you from Minister Poniflek, because that's the data that's available to him. I do it usually on a weekly basis. So if that's information that's coming up since this weekend, I don't have that. I knew what was tested up until Sunday, which was 9% of 3,000 travelers up until Sunday were tested, with only 2 being positive that directly came from the US. That's all I can tell you for that. The first part in terms of the businesses, the ministerial regulation is changing, especially with the developments of today, this morning, that was asked about in terms of education VSA related to LU, to Learning Unlimited School. So what I will say here, I do not want to be held against, because we are constantly held accountable for, because we're constantly changing the businesses based on the risk exposure that we're receiving from VSA, from the medical professionals that are actively studying COVID-19 clusters on the island. So what we have agreed on, which will not change, would be casinos, bars and bars, nightclubs, lounges such as cigar lounges, meeting and conference venues. So places that you would have conferences or wedding venues, that sort of big event gathering. What we are considering is if we are looking at any other businesses to close. Sorry, I forgot to mention casinos. If we are looking at any other business, but this is based on the information we are receiving on the cases in terms of where the clusters are. Again, the amount of cases that we have had increase in the last 5 days is very alarming. The public needs to remember just to stay home, stay safe in terms of minimize your outdoor activities, minimize your exposure with others. We are already in a very challenging time where parents have to stay home and do homeschooling with their kids, and we are outside of our office space. So I'm really just asking everyone to be very responsible during this time. Mr. Sock, Dr. Sock, sorry, I forgot your second question. You asked about the businesses that were going to close. You asked about the data in terms of testing from the passengers at the airport. And what was the second one? I think you had about 3 questions in there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The second part, Minister, was what if they're considering changes to those categories? What are some of the what other considerations are currently underway?
Okay, thank you. Yes, I did forget that part. That's very important for me to clarify as well. We are still discussing what we are going to do about gatherings, large gatherings. So the limitation of a large gathering, whether it starts at 5 or 4 or 6 persons, that is the discussion point that is on the table now. And hopefully by the time we finalize this regulation, the ministerial regulation today, that will be clearly defined. Again, this is not because of our visitors that we are making these changes. This is because of our residents, our St. Martiners. Our visitors have been minimal. And now because of our behavior, we are affecting our economic activity, our survival now that we were trying to reopen. So I'm really pleading with the public to be very careful. I believe every other minister here, including our deputy minister, prime minister, has said the same. We're not saying it because we're a broken record. We're saying it because we are really concerned that our public remains safe. Thank you, Dr. Sock.
Thank you, Minister DeWeaver. Thank you, Dr. Sock, for that question. I would also like to inform members of the media this is the final round of questions. Lyndon Brown of BCN TV, you have the floor.
Good morning again to the ministers. Question to Minister DeWeaver. Minister DeWeaver, it seems like there is a blame game going on. From April, we see the COVID number being going up and going down. Minister, it was down to 0 when St. Martin Airport did not open. But now, after St. Martin Airport opened, the number went up, Minister. And the emphasis, it seemed like the emphasis emphasizing on the people of St. Martin are being to blame. But the question is, did Minister DeWeaver, did you all did a study? Because sometimes they are saying that the virus can be present and there is no symptoms. So I needed to weigh in on this this matter, DeWeaver, the similarity. St. Martin was 0, but now it gone almost to 100. So explain to the people of St. Martin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your question. It is absolutely not a blame game. No one is blaming anyone. We are pleading with the public to remain safe. The public is going out in areas of clusters where the cases are found, and they're all related to about 6 or 7 cluster areas. So it's not a blame game. It is not blaming visitors versus our residents. I am a resident. I am a St. Martiner. It is not a blame game. What I am responsible for as a St. Martiner is who I go around, what activity I am doing. So I will not be in an enclosed space with people and practicing social distancing or wearing a mask. So I've minimized my activities outside of my house and outside of the office. And unfortunately, COVID-19 does not discriminate. So my concern is that we have sufficient medical resources here for our residents. My responsibility is to inform the public that it is out there and it is attacking us. It is on the residents, not the visitors. It is attacking St. Martiners. Again, let me repeat, it is not a blame game. We had cases of COVID-19 before the airport reopened. We had the airport reopened to France and the Netherlands from July 1st. We had COVID-19 before those flights started. The airport opened up to US flights. We had COVID-19 before those flights started. It is not a blame game. Let's not move the attention to finger pointing and targeting. The attention is on the fact that we have to remain safe. I hope I've made myself clear. Thank you very much, Mr. Brown, for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minister DeWeaver. Thank you, Lyndon. Dimitri, you have the final question.
Hi, good morning again. My final question is to the Minister of Justice, Anna Richardson. Minister Richardson, I posed this question to you several weeks ago, and I have yet to receive an answer. It may have slipped you, so I want to use this opportunity to ask the question again. The ankle bracelet monitoring program for inmates was launched several months ago. At the time, the program was said to be used for, among other things, to allow prisoners at the Point Blanche prison to be given a sort of early release, and in doing so, make space at the already full to capacity detention center. What is the status of this project? How many inmates have been released via this program thus far? And what, if any, have been the bottlenecks and challenges that have been faced?
Thank you for your question, Dimitri. And as had been expressed to you previously, this is a very sensitive topic for my person, and I would appreciate the opportunity to provide factual information and to handle anything to do with the Ministry of Justice, especially when it's sensitive, in a very proactive manner. That being said, though the ankle bracelet program is there, bear in mind that if an inmate has a conviction, it has a date attached to it. It does not necessarily mean that automatically the program is going to be utilized. Assessments has to be done by the committee and the board to be able to identify who qualifies for it. Yeah, the ankle bracelets are in usage, but the actual details is not something that I am prepared to disclose, because I think that is something that has to be kept confidential, and unless advised by my legal advisors that can be disclosed, only then I can provide it. Should any additional information be available to provide to you on that front, then I will, but in the present state, it's not available.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Minister Richardson. Thank you, Dimitri, as well as all the members of the media that took part in this press briefing this morning. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this does bring us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, August 12th, 2020. For rebroadcast, tune into St. Martin Cable TV, channel 115, St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, and the YouTube channel Government of St. Martin. For video on demand, be sure to log into the official government's website at stmartingov.org. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Rolika Roach, and wishing you a pleasant day further.